Hello everyone. Welcome to our class research methods. So last meeting, I emphasized about research problem that in a research process, the starting point is the identification of a research problem. And then I mentioned that in a thesis, in a dissertation, or in any kind of a research paper, we do have statement of the problem. And the statement of the problem is actually divided into two. The first paragraph, the general statement of the problem, and the second paragraph is the specific statement of the problem. I made mention also that there should be an output as emphasized in the general statement of the problem. You will know that you're already in the specific statement of the problem because normally the second paragraph starts with specifically and so forth and so on. I emphasize also that if the thesis, the research paper, or the dissertation has been completed already, then the tense of the verb is past. However, if you are still making a proposal, then the tense is either present or in the future tense. So let me go back to the example that I have presented last time. I mentioned about the specific statement of the problem. And then I focus about the identification of the difficulties of certain learning competencies. And then number two, it's all about the reasons of those difficulties. Number three, the strategies being used to overcome those different difficulties. And then the last one is actually the making or the development of a training design based on the findings of the study. I would like to remind each and everyone that when you are going to have the specific statement of the problem, it must be following the acronym SMART. The same to the way you write learning objectives, where you are going to follow the acronym SMART. If you remember, S represents specific. Dapat your statement of the problem is actually very specific. You know what you are going to include in the study and what you are not going to include in the study. You're so definite, you're so certain on what are to be included and what are not to be included. When you're going to look at the variable in the specific statement of the problem, you're able to define it specifically or definitely or certainly, where when you're going to look at that variable, you know what are the members of that variable, what are not members of that variable, who are members of that variable, and who are not members of that variable, what are to be included in that variable, and what are not to be included in that variable. Second, letter M, measurable. When you are going to look at the variables in your specific statement of the problem, they should be measurable. Meaning, you know how to measure those different variables. You have an instrument on how are you going to measure those different variables. You have the instrument on how are you going to collect the data. But that kind of instrument must be a valid instrument and must be a reliable instrument. There might be a possibility that you can borrow an instrument because based on the review of the related literature, you're able to look at into a certain literature where the instrument being used in that thesis, in that dissertation that you have seen in the review of related literature is actually the same or exactly the same or similar to the variables that you are using in your own research proposal or in your own thesis or in your own dissertation. But there might be some cases where in the review of related literature you could not find a certain instrument, then that would be the time that you are going to develop that would be the time that you're going to make your own research instrument. But making your own research instrument is tedious because you're going to validate that one and you are going to test for reliability. I will be discussing those terms later. Then we have letter A, attainable. See to it that the specific statement of the problems are attainable. That if the duration is 5 months, you will be able to attain those different measurement, the data collection, the analysis, the interpretation of the data being collected. And we have letter R, realistic. So looking at your statement of the problems, number 1, number 2, so forth and so on, see to it that they are realistic. We look at the community, we're going to look at around within your location, within your profession, or within your field of specialization. There is a reality of what you are thinking as your specific statement of the problem. And then letter T, time bounded. No? Dapat there is a time, there is actually a duration of your study, of your thesis, or maybe in your entire research process. There is a starting point and there is a terminal point and ending point. And we call that one as the duration of your research process. So I emphasize again on how are you going to develop your statement of the problems na specific, following the acronym SMART. So for now, go over the statement of the problems that you have created last meeting, and I want you to look up into those different statements if they are actually following the acronym SMART. Thank you very much, and happy day to everyone.